Now that everyone should have watched the first episode of One Punch Man Season 2, we can talk about some broad stroke topics. This is a rant on my first impression, not an analysis. And I won't talk about the animation quality because that is 100% subjective unless it adds to a scene. Basically, I'm following the idea that if you did everything correct, it's as if you did nothing at all. And if you disagree with that, leave a comment so I can address your issue with that. And I hope I'm fair within this rant, so let's move on. But before we do, let me preface this by saying that my basic boiled down opinion of One Punch Man is that it's playing it straight. People think it's satire or a deconstruction of tropes. Unfortunately, I see that kind of idea as an early excuse for the premise of the show, and now it's just another run of the mill superpower anime. Unless you call pseudo references to other shows a deconstruction, or oh, it's a deconstruction because it gives more realistic characterizations and story beats. I just still see it as a like hacky writing, because we know because what's something new. Like, well, think about it. What are you learning from this? By boiling it down to its rudimentary elements. What are you as the audience taking out? What are you learning new from this show? What are you learning new from the basic shonen formula? And again, I am quite familiar with this, so I'm not learning anything new. So that's why I think like no, this it's playing it straight. It's just maybe like some viewers added some sophistication to the show when it really shouldn't have. And this brings in other problems that is somewhat unique to One Punch Man, and that is it's like a gateway anime in general. No, one problem is that Western audiences will think it's normal or at least quirky, right? Because there's nothing there to challenge the viewer. No, I'm still a fan, don't get me wrong. I just don't have to lie to myself and think like One Punch Man is high art. I still think it's good and I still want to watch it. And again, I just think, One Punch Man is just the etchy equivalent for battle anime. Shitty plot, great action. So now let's talk about the episode. And I just want to again, so my thesis statement: One Punch Man season 2 episode 1 is plain as hell because it is relying on the audience's already known expectations of the show and not utilizing the medium to attract future audiences. Okay, so we get a fight scene, some cool monster appearances, funny interactions, but in this episode, there's nothing that's rewatchable. For shows like One Punch Man and pretty much any show, that you watch for entertainment, I look for the YouTube moment, and by that I mean the scene that I will look up for, on YouTube. I'll search it out and just watch it over and over and over again. You might disagree with me here, but because you thought the Genos fight was cool. Why did you think that fight was cool? So seriously. And from my experience with this episode, the fight was basic and forgettable. There was no standout scenes that would make me go back and rewatch. And I think it is fair to compare it to the first episode of season 1. In that episode, we had 3 very rewatchable scenes. Him saving the big chin child from that, lobster guy. Him versus the brothers. And his in the dream sequence, right? That entire sequence, I probably watch it once a week. And you see how that episode draws you in for the next episode, right? Like, oh, this is a really cool anime. But what we watch now is just like, oh, the day. And again, this show is kind of in the day of the daily life of a superhero, right? So I kind of get that, but there's nothing there to like lead you on to the next episode. And again, I know what's to come. I am a manga reader, and unless they are starting small and building up, there's no reason to start this first episode like this. Everything is toned down, and even with the content available, like the most controversial, and I say controversial as attention getting. You want your scenes to be controversial because controversy creates what? Attention. People come like, oh, what's going on? So, but there's nothing in this scene in this episode except maybe the mention of rape by that reptile monster. And in the first episode of season 1, we know thousands of people are dead because we see it happen. We even get a squashed human, which was kind of funny, They played the gore angle a little better And another thing I want to talk about, like, did you chuckle in this episode? Like, were you laughing? Or were you like me and said to yourself, like, yeah, that's funny, instead of actually laughing? And let me ask, if you are a one manga fan or a Murata fan, what does this anime serve? If it's anything like Dragon Ball, Naruto slash Boruto, One Piece, or whatever, you want the anime to be pure eye orgasms whenever possible, which I would think that the first episode would serve for that purpose, right? And again, it failed, in my opinion. If you didn't watch this episode, it's basically just an introduction of King, a guy with, let's say, really, 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 really good luck, and yeah, that's basically it. There's nothing really cool about that, right? At least as an anime only viewer, if you're watching this episode, like, oh, a guy who lied, and he's top tier as class, right? It's top, and again, like, so what? I want you to like legitimately ask, how is this cool, right? But that's that episode basically. It's like, hey, you're a phony, a big fat phony, and if that hurts your feelings, maybe become strong, right? That's the takeaway message for that episode. But how do you make it interesting? How would you make that interesting? How would you, if you want to like mirror the first episode, maybe what you could have done is show the consequences of this behavior. Instead of Genos fighting, we see King leave people to die, and as the viewer, they died. You know that the people are like, oh yeah, King's gonna save us, and they're dead. That would have been way more influential, a great, more impactful episode. And I could really see this occur if we compare it to the first episode of the first season, because in that you really do see how helpless the people are without their heroes. And I'm sure One Punch Man is a very didactic show, with Saitama playing the voice of Incite. That's actually something I like about this show, especially with Garo and Saitama in the future when they start fighting. I'm still looking forward to the show, because I like what I see. I'm here for the characters and the fights, and so I will say most of the time I'm interested in the soundtracks. But this episode was so, and let's hope that changes. Leave any comments you have, or if you disagree, let me know why, and I'll be sure to maybe comment on them.